My name is Markusi. I am the director of Tezos Ghana. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to set up a Tezos baker right here in Ghana. So let's start with what is baking. To be able to explain baking to you, first let me explain what is Tezos. Right, Tezos is a blockchain platform. Maybe as you've heard of blockchain, is a way that allows um, people to make transactions and send money in a decentralized manner, right? So Tezos is one of the blockchain platforms. I'm sure you've heard of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tezos is the next generation blockchain platform that has learned from both of these blockchains and has very up-to-date technology, right? So in every blockchain platform, as the name suggests, a blockchain is a collection of blocks or a chain of blocks, right? So in a blockchain, you need to create blocks every time period. So for instance, in Bitcoin, you need to create a block every 10 minutes. So all the Bitcoin nodes or computers come together and create a block every 10 minutes. In Ethereum, a block is created every 15 minutes, right? So blockchain is like a chain of blocks, as I've said, and a block is a collection of something we call transactions. So a transaction, you can just think of it as a command. So for example, let's use a simple example. A transaction could say send money from my account to another person's account, right? So this is an example of transaction. We'll stick to this example throughout the course. So we'll be using this example of a transaction throughout this series. So just remember this. A blockchain is a chain of blocks, which is a collection of blocks. A block is a collection of transactions. Transactions are nothing much more than just instructions. For example, transfer amount 10 Ghana cedi from this account to the other account, right? And then the sender will sign it. So everyone knows that this sender is approving that he wants to transfer money from my account to someone's account. So that is a simple example of transaction. So in Tezos, a blockchain node or a computer running on Tezos blockchain called a validator collects all these transactions every 30 seconds and puts them together and publishes this transaction. This is what we call a block. So it collects all these transactions, puts all these transactions in a block, and then sends this transaction around to other validators or other nodes in the Tezos blockchain for them to know about this block. Now there are so many validators on Tezos. So then the question arises, how do we decide which validator should create a block every 30 seconds? So the Tezos protocol is designed in such a way that a timetable is created 16 days ahead of time. So from today, which is the 30th April, then 16 days, that will be, for instance, 16th May, right? When you check the Tezos timetable, you can tell every 30 seconds who is responsible for baking the block, right, in that 30-second frame. So this timetable is created ahead of time by the Tezos algorithm, which is a distributed algorithm. Distributed just means that it is running on various computers at the same time, but then they are also agreeing on the same thing, right? So in a nutshell, this is what Tezos baking is all about. We have a timetable, and a validator is supposed to, or a baker is supposed to bake a block when their time is up, right? So when you have a baker in Tezos, you know that, okay, at this point in time I'm supposed to bake a block. At this point I'm supposed to bake a block, and so on and so far. So this is what baking is in Tezos. So in this section I'll talk about what is the importance of baking to the Tezos blockchain. So as I've explained in the earlier section, baking is just the process of creating new blocks in the Tezos blockchain. So based on this, and based on the fact that a blockchain is a collection of blocks, then you could say that baking is the most important process or activity on the Tezos blockchain, because without baking, no new blocks will be created and we will not have a blockchain at all. So baking is the most important activity on the Tezos blockchain. It helps us to collect all the transactions or all the things that people are using Tezos wants to happen, right? And then it puts them in a block and publishes this block to everyone on the Tezos network to be aware of the new updates and the new changes. So Tezos baking is the most important activity on Tezos. Also, it helps it helps the Tezos blockchain to identify bad actors or hackers, bad guys who are trying to perform illegal activity on the Tezos blockchain. When we say illegal activity, for instance, the main problem in blockchain is something we call double spending, and blockchain has been designed to prevent double spending. So in Bitcoin, there's a way to do it that is done. In Ethereum, there's a way to do it that is done, and in Tezos too, the way to do it is what? Baking, and the baking contains a full process where we create new blocks and make sure that invalid acts or illegal activity is banned or is caught. Okay, so I keep on using the term baker. So the baker is someone who bakes blocks on the Tezos. Now, when I say someone, please bear with me because I'm just talking about a computer. Right? This is just a computer program that is running on a computer and is creating new blocks every time. So it's not like a human being, right? It's just a computer. The whole process is automated. So just keep that in mind. Now, on Tezos, a baker has two responsibilities. The first responsibility is to create new blocks or bake, and the second responsibility is to endorse, right? So endorse is that when someone else creates the block, you as the baker has to look at the block and the content of the block and ensure that everything that is in that block is legal, right? So that's why I said baking is the main activity, important activity on the Tezos blockchain, because it helps us to create new block and it also helps us to catch illegal activity. So in Tezos, either you are creating a new block as a baker or you are endorsing the block. By endorsing the block, it means you are looking at the block and you're saying, okay, is everything here illegal? If everything is legal, then I give my stamp that is correct, and then we also send it around to other bakers to check it. So as I've said again, when I speak about baking or a baker as a human being, I'm actually talking about a computer program. In this session, I would like to talk about the environmental implications of Tezos baking. Unlike mining on Bitcoin and Ethereum, Tezos baking does not have any significant adverse effect on the environment. Baking on Tezos is just like using your laptop normally. In fact, you will not consume any more energy than a normal laptop user. As you will see in the next sessions, the requirements to set up a Tezos baker are very low. In a summary, Tezos is what you call a green blockchain. In this section, I'll explain to you how to become a Tezos baker and set up your own baker. So I'll talk about the hardware requirements, the software requirements, and the monetary requirements you need to become a Tezos baker. So first, let's go to the hardware requirements. So to become a Tezos baker, all the hardware you need in terms of computing power is just a normal laptop, right? So a laptop with at least 4 cores, 4 CPU cores, 8 gigabyte RAM, and 128 gigabyte SSD. Important SSD. HDD is not very good for this kind of thing, so SSD hard drive is what you need. So an example of a laptop is you would use like an Intel Core i5 or an AMD Ryzen 5 laptop, and that should be enough to set you up as to cover the computing power requirements for baking on Tezos. Now, aside the laptop, you also need what we call a ledger device. So in blockchain, we have something called a hardware ledger. An example is Ledger Nano X or Ledger Nano S, and I'll put the link in the description and you can go and see it. It's just about $60 and you get this ledger device. It will be displayed on the screen for you to see what I'm talking about, and also the link will be in the description below and you can check it out. So Ledger Nano S, and this one stores your private keys on this device, which looks like a pen drive, and you are the only one who can access it with a specific pin code, right? And the important aspect or the reason for using this is that it's kind of like it's not connected to the internet or anything. You just connect it to your laptop, and the Tezos baking software will access it. It's not like exposing the private key or anything, but it has a way of accessing it without exposing these keys. in a specific way, right? So all the computations that need to be done are done on the ledger devices, or if there's anything that needs to be signed, it will be signed on the ledger device and sent back to the Baker software, which will then relay it to the network. So there's no point where your keys are exposed to either your laptop or even the internet, and this is a secure way, because you're going to store a lot of money on your keys. You need to store it in a very secure manner. So you need this ledger device also. So these are the two main hardware requirements, or the hardware that you need to set up. Some extra stuff I would say is, if you for your internet, if you are going to use something like a MiFi device, or like a router or something, then you need to also get one, and you get a reliable network in your area, right? So these days, most of these networks are actually not reliable. But if you can find a cloud provider or something like that for internet, which is much more reliable, you should go in for that one. And then another hardware that you can also get in addition is something like maybe a generator, because of power outages and everything, right? As you know, in Ghana there are power outages here and there, and some of them can last long. So one advantage of using a laptop is that when the power goes out, the laptop battery will sustain for a while, maybe 6 hours. And then, so in case the power goes out for 12 hours, then that means your baking software will go offline. And within that period, you will not be able to communicate with the Tezos blockchain, which is not a good thing. So if you can get a second source of power, so that when your power goes out, you can switch to that. So it's either a solar generator, or a diesel generator, or petrol generator, or something like that. That will be very good. So that sums it up for the hardware requirement. So now you have your hardware in place. You have your laptop. You have your internet connection and everything. The next thing is to now install software on the laptop, and install the baking software on the laptop, and start baking. So how do you do this? So Tezos has a simple baking software that you can just install on a laptop and start baking. You don't need any too much technical expertise. It's just like installing an app, right? So, but the limitation is that you can only use either a Mac or a Linux based operating system to install this software. So Windows is out of the question. So let's say for Mac, yes, so if you have a Mac, so even the laptop, you can actually use a Mac to actually make Tezos. Or you can buy a laptop, as we've already discussed, and install like Linux on the laptop and use that instead. So once you install your operating system, whether Mac or Linux, you should go to the software. You should just go to the software's homepage to download it. So I'll put the link in the description. The software is called Kiln, Kiln. Right. This Kiln is a graphical user interface based software for baking on Tezos. So graphical user interface, which means that you are not supposed to use anything like command line or what you see the program is using. It will fire up a graphical user interface, and you can click on what you want and what you are supposed to do, and it's very easy and simple to use. Maybe we will go later into that software and how to use it later, or you can, if you want to learn more and maybe actually start setting up your baker, when you get to that level also and you need still such assistance, you can still contact the Tezos Ghana, and we will take you through how to do it. Once you go through it and you get it once, the next time is very easy to use. So once you install this software, then I think you are ready to start baking on Tezos. All right, so now you've installed your software on the hardware, and you've installed, and you can see the program is running and everything. You are ready to connect your hardware wallet, as we spoke about the ledger device, to the computer. And the process is very simple. As I said, if you need assistance, or you can, when you go to their website, they actually have a documentation on how to do it step by step, and you can see that. But still, if you need extra assistance, you can contact Tezos Ghana and we can help you. And so once you have this, all you need to do now is to create a Tezos account, so right, you are creating a Tezos account on your hardware wallet. And when you create a Tezos account on your hardware wallet, to be able to start baking on Tezos or to become a baker on Tezos, you need to do something we call staking. So I've not mentioned this initially, but staking is a process of putting a certain amount of money in your account, right? And once you put this amount of money in your account, you now get the right to start creating new blocks on the Tezos blockchain. So why do you need to put a certain amount of money in your account before you can actually start creating new blocks? The reason for this is this. Tezos uses something called proof of stake. What is proof of stake? In proof of stake, the baker is required to put a certain amount of money in their account, and this money is locked up by the Tezos protocol. Once this money is locked up by the Tezos protocol, the baker now has a right to create new blocks. The reason for locking up your money is that once creating the blocks, you have now the power to decide what to be in the block. So you can include illegal stuff in the block. And so when we catch you that you're including illegal stuff, that's when the protocol suspects or determines that you have included some illegal transactions in the block. It needs a way to disincentivize you, or it needs a way to punish you. And so it will go to the money that has been locked and it will slash or burn or some of them away. And this amount is 600 Tezos, right? So let's say you are supposed to create a block and you intentionally include certain illegal transactions in the block, or you try to do something illegal as a baker. Once the Tezos protocol determines that you are trying to do something illegal, which it will determine, it will then go to your deposit and remove this deposit, so you lose that amount of money. Now this is to deter bakers from doing illegal stuff, right? Because in the end you'll be punished for it and you lose more money than you are going to gain eventually. So that is what proof of stake is. Now don't be scared, because this is not like you, as I said, whether I talk about you and everything, I'm talking about bakers. I'm actually talking about the computer programs. So if you download the Tezos baking software, right, and you are baking normally, you will never have this problem. The only people who will have this problem are hackers and those people who download the software and will make certain changes to the code to act in a different way than the Tezos protocol has determined, right? So the software is open source. You can download it, but you can also change the code in the software. So maybe someone can decide to change the code and do something illegal with it, right? And by when I say something illegal, I mean like try to do some double spending or create multiple blocks, right? And put in different transactions in there, right? Maybe add a balance to his own transactions or increase his balance or something like that. And when you try to do this, you will be caught, right? Because that is why there's a process of baking and endorsement, as I explained earlier. When a baker bakes a block, it has to be endorsed by other bakers. In this case, when a baker bakes a block, it needs 7,000 endorsements from other bakers before it will be accepted into the Tezos blockchain. Now, all of this has to happen within 30 seconds. And it actually does happen within 30 seconds. And once a block is created and endorsed by everyone and accepted, it is added to the blockchain, and then a new block is created, and that is how we end up getting a lot of blocks in the blockchain. So this is proof of stake. You put your money down and you get the right to vote to bake blocks. Now that your money is locked up, if you do anything shady, your money will be taken or be slashed away or be banned. In the actual term is banned. The Tezos protocol will ban your deposit. So proof of stake is a way to prevent you from frauding the system, right? Okay, so then the question is, what is the minimum amount of money or you need to deposit in order to start becoming a baker on Tezos blockchain? Now in Tezos blockchain, we have something we call a role. A role in Tezos is 6,000 Tezos. So that means as a baker, you have one role if you have 6,000 Tezos in your account. Now, you, the baker yourself, you don't need to actually deposit all of these 6,000 Tezos. You just need to deposit 10% of this 6,000 Tezos. And then you can have other users in the Tezos blockchain. Now, note the term I use here, other users, right? Because in the Tezos blockchain, we have the bakers and we have the normal people who are using the Tezos blockchain to do their transactions, right? So we have people who are using just a normal wallet, a Tezos wallet, to transfer money to their friends, families, whatever. These are normal users, they are not bakers, right? Now, these normal users can also participate in the Tezos baking process by a certain process called delegation. Delegation is like this. Let's say if you're a normal user and you have maybe 1,000 Tezos in your account, you can say that I'm delegating my money, my account balance to a certain baker. Now, delegating my money to account balance in my account balance to a certain baker doesn't mean you're actually sending the money. You are just saying that I support this baker, right? So if they say the baker has 600 Tezos and you delegate 1,000 Tezos, the baker will now have a staking balance of 1,600 Tezos. Now note the term, a staking balance of 1,600 Tezos. So to be able to have one row, a baker needs a staking balance of 6,000 Tezos. Now this staking balance, the baker only needs to deposit 600 Tezos, and other users in the blockchain can delegate up to the 6,000. So if a baker has deposited 600, then that means other users can delegate up to 5,400 to that baker, and that baker will now have 6,000, which is one full row, right? So the minimum amount you need to start baking is actually 600 Tezos. Once you get this amount, you deposit this amount into your account, then Tezos will start including you into the timetable, as I mentioned earlier on, that the Tezos protocol creates a timetable. So now once you have this deposit and everything, and other people have delegated up to 6,000 Tezos for you, now the protocol will start seeing you as a baker who has the requirement to bake, and then Tezos protocol will now start including you in its timetable. So now you start seeing on your own timetable the time that you're supposed to bake and the time that you're supposed to do endorsement. You will see a lot of endorsement actually, because for every block baked, we have 7,000 endorsement, and you can be assigned maybe 20 endorsement or any amount of them based on your money that you have staked, right? So the 600 Tezos is just the minimum amount, but if you want, you can deposit let's say 6,000. So if you deposit 6,000, it means that people can delegate 6,000 times 10, that's 60,000 to you, right? And you have, every row is 6,000, so you have like 100 rows, and you have a higher chance of baking new blocks. So then higher the number of rows you have, the higher the number of chances you have. Yes, so this is the mandatory requirement for baking and Tezos, right? And how the Tezos baking process actually works. It uses staking. So the terms you should have in mind is staking, baking, delegating, right? Yes. So I think that is enough to get you started. 600 Tezos, right? To get you started to be as a Tezos baker. So this is the mandatory requirement for Tezos baking. So in this section, we are just going to go over a little scenario. Let's assume that you want to start your baker, right? And let's say you have a minimum deposit of 600 Tezos, and you have your laptop and everything. We just want to calculate what is the cost involved. So what amount of money you need to actually start the baker, and what is the profit you are going to get. So in this case, we are looking at the scenario where you have only one row in the Tezos as a Tezos baker. So let's assume that your baker is one row. So the total cost you are going to incur in order to start baker, let's assume you don't have laptop, anything, right, is $2,500, right, which is 18,750 Ghana cedis approximately. So let me break this down. So you need a laptop, which is $500, right? Then you need an internet connection device and data. So let's say you want to use it, you can use either a MiFi or you can use a router, or if you want, you can subscribe to some cloud network. And let's assume that one will cost you $120 if you let's say you're using like a MiFi, right? And you're buying maybe some, you're using like one of a reliable um, mobile network to supply you data. Then let's say that will cost you $120 to get the MiFi and also get the initial data to start. Because mind you, it doesn't use a lot of data. So even if you get 80 gig as initially, it will take very long before it actually finishes up. And then let's say you buy the Ledger Nano X for $80, and then the last thing is the amount of Tezos you need to stake, which is 600 Tezos, which is right now is approximately $1,800, right? So this is the cost you're going to get, $2,500 to start your baker, assuming you don't have anything at all. Then let's look at the profit calculation. Because you have one role, you could be creating like, on average, like one block per month. When you create a block on Tezos blockchain, you get at least 20 Tezos plus all the transaction fees that were included in the block. So let's assume that you get at least 20 Tezos for creating each block, right? And there are other things like endorsements which you also get. So adding all the endorsements you're going to get in the month plus at least creating one block on average, you're going to be making like maybe something like 30 Tezos a month, and times 12, that would be 180 Tezos. And then when you bring it into dollars, that will be maybe $1,080, right? So yeah, so I mean, looking at the investment of 1,800 Tezos and making 1,080 a year, right? This is one bigger, sorry, one row, right? So, and also as the number of rows increases actually, and you become a more reliable baker, the number of blocks that you can get to create also increases. Okay, so one thing is that the chance to create a block is not only dependent on the number of rows, but also dependent on your performance. By performance, I mean your availability on the network. So usually Tezos does something like test you with endorsement. It gives you a lot of endorsement, and it's okay to miss endorsement. But if you miss too much endorsement, then it would assume that you are not very active, and it will not give you a lot of blocks to bake, because it knows that you can also miss it. But as I said, baking is an important process in Tezos. Now, if you miss baking a block, another baker has to bake the block. But this would now, instead of taking 30 seconds to create a block, it will now take like 2 minutes. So you delaying and everything. So once you set up a baker, just make sure that the baker is in good position, like you have good internet connection, you have good power supply so that it never goes off. Yeah, so as we've done the cost and profit calculation, so you can make at least $1,000 a year with one role. That's one investment of $1,800 from Tezos, which actually not that bad. And this is not something you have to be looking at every time, because everything is automated. Once your internet connection is reliable, your power source is reliable, then so it's like some sort of passive income, right? Maybe you just have to check on your laptop once a day to make sure that everything is running fine and everything. That is not a lot to ask for, right? So yeah, if you do have the monetary requirements, I think this is something worth trying.